Kelly from Cards by Christine here with you on a Technique Thursday. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Totally inspired by the holiday in creating this card. So, we are going to do a watercolor card today. I love watercolors so much, and it'll just make sense as soon as you see the card. So, oh man, it looks more beautiful from afar than I was struggling with the embellishments. I think that's what I'm just going to leave it at. And also, I liked the vellum to kind of pop the words off a little bit, but it's, you know, vellum's a hard thing to adhere, so we'll work through all of that in just a minute. So, first, when doing watercolor, you are going to have the most success if you use our Fluid 100 watercolor paper. So, that is the first, like, pro tip that I'm going to give to you. Then, I cut it in half. They're 5x7 sheets, so I cut it down to 5x3.5, and we're making a rainbow. And then, obviously, embellishing it with the words Happy St. Patrick's Day using the Word Wishes dies. So, we have a set of water painters that come in 3 different brush sizes. So we've got the fan brush, then we've got a paintbrush head and a smaller paintbrush head. So I'm using the paintbrush head that is the larger bristles, and then I'm going to, it's taken a little bit of learning curve. I tried a couple different things. Obviously, I want to share with you the best practices. So I took my time trying to figure out how to best share with you to make the best output possible. So let's take our water brush, and then what I did after some trial and error is I laid out my colors, Stampin' Reinkers, on the largest, I think it's an F block maybe, and I used Poppy Parade, Mango Melody, Daffodil Delight, Granny Apple Green, Pacific Point, and Gorgeous Grape. And I love those colors. They're true to the rainbow colors, so they turned out awesome. So take your Fluid 100, and then what I did was I lightly watered the paper in the area I wanted the stripe to go. Operative word here is light. If you put too much water down, you're going to have much more spreading and bleeding of your color, and it's also going to warp your paper so much more. Okay, sorry about my head in there. Then I don't want to take the color straight, if that makes any sense. So our reinkers are very heavily pigmented. So like what I learned and didn't do quite so perfectly well with my sample, and actually all of my samples, I even got better, but it wasn't perfect. You don't want to use the full strength color. My yellow on my sample card looks just like orange because I didn't dilute the ink down enough that it looked like a really pigmented yellow, and essentially basically just looked like orange then. So I did discover in doing this that certain colors worked better, more pigmented than others. So like the red, I'm keeping a pretty true to pigment color by very lightly diluting, whereas like I said, the Daffodil Delight, you want to dilute more than less if you want to keep it true to a yellow color. Now, with the design that I made, it wasn't the biggest deal because you can't really see real much of the yellow anyways, but just some tips, because, you know, you may like this technique but not necessarily into the St. Patrick's spirit, so you don't want to do this exact card. So yeah. Now, I have my red rainbow stripe well put down. I'm going to go rinse the red ink out of this bristle, because if I try to even just push water through it, through the water painter, it's still going to have so much of that red ink in there that you'll have a hard time switching colors. Best practice when working with watercolors is to always have a paper towel around, for several reasons. So first, I'm just gonna, re-wet my bristles onto the paper towel. But also, if you do put down too much water, having a paper towel handy is extremely helpful in controlling your color. So now, another thing I learned in practicing is it is very, very helpful if you do every other stripe, because your colors will remain wet. They're watercolors. They will remain wet for a while, and that's good because that helps with blending. But if you butt wet colors up to consecutive wet colors, you will start to really lose control of your design, and they'll really bleed. I like bleeding colors with watercolor. It's kind of part of the goal, but I don't want my red and yellow, well, I guess because I'm skipping a color, it would be, for my example, would be red and orange. I don't want them to just completely mix into one color. So I'm going to do red, then yellow, then blue, and then come back and put the orange in the middle, the green and the purple, respectively. So already I'm so much happier with this because it looks like yellow. It doesn't look like orange. So I'm just gonna grab just a hair more. Love these reinkers. You can use reinkers for a lot of different purposes beyond just reinking your stamp pads. So if you've never purchased reinkers before, thinking that, I don't use my stamp pads that often, I don't need to reink them. Valid point, understood. But there are a lot of really fun and cool things that you can do with reinkers besides just reinking your stamp pads. Okay, I'm gonna rinse out the yellow now. Come back to you with blue. So again, you're gonna see me do this process 7 times because, rainbow. Lay down your stripe. Sorry, my eyes itching. Lay down your stripe of water. And then apply the pigment on top. By laying the water down, you're basically giving your color a track to control the color. If you didn't put that down, your color can travel willy-nilly and it won't travel near as far because it kind of is just gonna get lost, if that makes any sense. So by laying down a track, it helps to control your color. Now, if you're looking to have a more abstract or organic look to your watercolor, if that's the look that you're going for, that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But for this particular design, I wanted my colors to stay kind of siloed, if that makes any sense, because I want it to, in the end, resemble a rainbow. So let's put down some more of this beautiful Pacific Point to really richen up that blue stripe. So this is the 3rd or 4th one that I'm doing, and I'm already so much happier. That's something I should point out. I bring you a weekly new technique, and it should not be expected that the first time you do a technique, it's going to be perfect. Oftentimes, I do a sample card and work through the design process and the bumpy road of figuring out how to create the technique before you even see it. So there's a lot of trial and error in bringing these techniques to you. So don't ever get frustrated if you're trying to make a card based on any of the new techniques you see or any of the videos that we bring to you and it's just not working. Give it some time. Don't get frustrated. Try again. Okay, I'm gonna get the blue out of my bristles. And move on now to orange. So, the red is very dry. The yellow is pretty dry, so that should be fine. We'll definitely get some blending, especially with the yellow, I'm quite certain, which is fine. You know, I don't want the colors to be completely independent of each other. I would like them to blend at least a little bit. That's some of the beauty of watercolor. But we will see how this goes. So I put a little too much water down, so I'm gonna bring my paper towel in and pick some of that water up because I do still want the colors to move and blend somewhat. Now, Stampin' Up! Doesn't at this time have a true rainbow orange, and that is part of the reason why my orange and yellow looked so much the same, because it's basically a light orange and a somewhat dark yellow, or at least at this point I put enough layers of yellow that it is a pretty dark yellow. And for that reason, my stripes end up looking pretty much to be the same tone. So I'm going to need to layer in quite a few swipes of this orange Mango Melody to get that differentiation between the orange and the yellow. Now, when I'm doing that though, I do have to be cautious that I'm not putting too, I don't want to get impatient and put down too much of that highly pigmented ink, because then we'll get more like of a disastrous tone in here. So I did learn that the hard way on my first sample. That's okay. That's what this learning is all about. So I'm going to soften the line between the two first, just by putting more water down, kind of dissolving that red just a little bit, just enough for it to blend together. And then I'll bring in some more of my Mango Melody and really richen up that orange stripe. Now, if you are going to case my particular card here, you will notice that this entire stripe is not entirely too important because the vellum will cover a lot of this, but that's neither here nor there. We're trying to learn here too. So let's get some. I can tell I'm maybe pushing it a little too much. I can see that some of this orange is too pigmented. As it dries, though, it does kind of soften a little bit. I will give you that disclaimer too. Probably shouldn't have been quite so heavy down at the bottom here, but it's okay. It is handmade, unique, one of a kind. So right off the bat, it's got that going for it. So moving my way through this card, I'm going to probably put one more go of water on the line between the red and the orange to just soften that a little bit. Maybe I'll even bring a little bit more red into there. I do really like the water look of watercolor where the colors blend together and get that like webby water look to it. I don't know what word I'm seeking here, but that is why, you know, if you've followed Cards by Christine for a while, you know that I love watercolor. I try to bring watercolor techniques all the time. Watercolor is not something you will typically see Chris doing in her like card class cards, which makes perfect sense because how it's a hard thing to be able to replicate by 70 different kits or, you know, whatever class participants are. So also the other thing that is difficult about watercolor is there is time necessary for it to dry. So that's another reason why it's a hard thing to do as a class topic. And that is another reason why I love to do it as a technique, so that you're still exposed, you still see what things you can do, but it's not necessarily something you're gonna get from Cards by Christine if you are a kit subscriber or any of that. Chris's cards are so beautiful. She definitely doesn't, she's not missing anything by not being able to offer these watercolor techniques, but I don't know, it's just, I also went to school for graphic design, so I had to do all of the art classes, so maybe that's why I have an affinity for that as well. All right, so moving on now to green. Let's get some Granny Apple Green going here. Okay, so the blue is still just a hair wet, so it's blending quite nicely. Obviously the yellow is still pretty wet, and that's blending well on that side too. I kind of have it at the perfect timing right now because the yellow is blending, but it's not bleeding, so it's not getting out of control. So, bravo! I am very interested in feedback from you guys on whether or not you are watercolor lovers as well, or if I'm maybe just out here on this island all by myself. So yeah, I'm curious. I'd love to know what you guys think about all of this. Okay, so I see here we're getting a little heavy on the bleeding, so I'm gonna try to contain that. Put just a little more green down up there. And then we're gonna move on to purple. This gorgeous, literally gorgeous grape, such a pretty color, such a beautiful purple. You know, it is funny. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old here. And, you know, favorite colors are definitely a thing that gets talked about with children this age. And I don't know what my favorite color is. I think rainbow, literally, is my favorite color. I was so excited when Stampin' Up! Introduced the rainbow set in this mini catalog. I haven't gotten it yet. It is back in stock from what I understand. I just have been very, very busy with work these days and haven't had the opportunity to sit down and actually order it, but I will, absolutely. I love, love, love it so much. There's no way I can not have it. But I really think my favorite color is rainbow. I don't know if that's a real thing or not, but I love, you know, I gravitate to each different color with different moods or feelings. So I really think it's, I don't know, I'm breaking the rules here and saying I can't choose a favorite color. Okay, so let's throw down some of that gorgeous purple, gorgeous grape. And so you kind of probably just saw there, diluted the ink, had my coat of water the track for it to go on and brought it to that track of water, and it kind of just disperses on its own. And then I'm going to come back and layer in some more of that ink to help basically strengthen its color. Okay. Just a little more. Such a rich color, it doesn't even need that much layering or help. And I might just leave it at that, at least for now, and then as it dries I can always add a little bit more pigment if I need. But there is your watercolor rainbow. I love it. I probably could work a little bit on blending the colors together, but especially with this particular design where the vellum's gonna cover a lot of that, I don't think I'm gonna worry too much about it. I'm just gonna pull in a little more blue, because I don't think you can see it up there, but there's a little bit of a water line in between where you can tell that I started a color and then didn't finish it. So we just want to soften that a little bit. If you go ahead and do a watercolor technique or this rainbow or anything, please share with us in the comments. We would love, love, love to see it. And another thing that I love is when you guys share tips with me. You know, I'm not an expert. I sometimes learn right along with you. So if you know of any ways that are better or make this easier, please let me know. We would love to share that with everyone. But yeah, I guess that is my watercolor rainbow. I'll walk you through the rest of the card if you're interested in making a very fun St. Patrick's Day card today. So I've got my 5x3.5 for my rainbow that is on our Fluid 100. When it is completely dry, I brought in some Stella on the rainbow, strategically just in the places that the vellum isn't covering. I figured I didn't need to waste the Stella behind the vellum. I have vellum here. Let's see here what size that is. Oh, I don't know where I put my extra piece. It is, I think, 2 3/4 by 4 1/4. And then I cut out in basic black, Happy St. Patrick's Day, which is from the Word Wishes dies. Then I matted in black behind the rainbow, so that's at 3 1/4 by 5 1/4. And then I have a thick basic white card base that is a vertically open card. And then to finish it off, so I put dimensionals behind the whole shebang. I put dimensionals behind the vellum too. I wanted some of that separation between the rainbow and the vellum. Vellum can be a bear to adhere, so stick with me. You know, it's not fun. I flipped over my sentiment and used liquid glue with a sponge dauber to adhere that down, then strategically placed black dimensionals behind the thickest areas of the sentiment so that I could kind of hide it. Then I put a white dimensional here and a white dimensional there. You can barely see it. It was perfect. And then this corner really needed some help. It's still not great. So I put a black dimensional and then strategically placed a gilded gem over the top of it. So that is how I finished off my card. It is so bright and cheery. I love it. I'm so excited about it. I hope you guys have a fantastic St. Patrick's Day. I was not even like big into St. Patrick's Day until I met my husband, who's part Irish. And you know, it's just, I think that people who get really like passionate about things like that, I just love it because it brings so much like happiness and sunshine to your days. So I went all in. I've got a Lucky Mama shirt, and I've got some, actually I have 2 pairs of St. Patrick's Day leggings. I didn't realize, I must have came up with another one along the way. So I love just getting into the spirit and celebrating and spreading some of that sunshine and happiness. So I hope you guys have a great St. Patrick's Day. If you have any special plans, drop them in the comments. We'd love to know. And I hope you have a wonderful Technique Thursday. I hope you enjoyed this technique. And you can catch Chris for some live card making.